Okay, so it should show the company EIN number on that somewhere.
Yes. Payers, EIN
Yes.
43-0415.
43041515.
Again, 43 dash.
0415.
Hang on. 0415.
He's shooting a message to our guy to see if we can't stop it. So you won't have to do anything. If you end up having to do something, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Talk soon. Bye-bye. And that's for Lee. Spelled Leigh. You may have it in the system spelled Leigh.
I'm holding the house.
Okay.
I'm gonna go put my leggings on.
Okay.
Except for Wednesday.
Okay.
Dad?
Things get started.
Yes. Christopher,
That's okay.
we are recording.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another day of QuickBooks Point of Sale Training with Barron's Inc. Today, we are going to talk more about the kind of back-end functionality that QuickBooks Point of Sale has built into it. We've already talked about inventory, customers, the PO and invoice structure, some of the features as far as discounts, customer email campaigns, things of that nature. Today, we're going to talk more about the data itself, where it goes, what it does, and how to track it. So up here, let's go to File. And we're just going to kind of go through the File dropdown. So if you want to back up your data, as opposed to waiting until the end of the day or in the middle of the night, let's say you have a really busy day and you want to make sure that you are tracking your data right away, just in case something happens. There's really important things in there. You can do a quick manual backup of your data by just doing File and go to the Backup Data. What that's going to do, it's going to just do a standard backup like you would at the end of the night, but allows you to do it manually. Second dropdown is going to be company operations. Now, company operations is not something you'll usually see quite a bit of or usually use quite a bit of, but we're going to just talk about what it means. So if you go to company operations, what it's going to do, it's going to have your existing company open. So it's going to say, this is what's currently open. If you have multiple companies in your, or multiple company files on your computer, it'll have the drop-down list of the different company files if you want to switch between companies. If, for example, you have multiple companies on one computer, or maybe you have an old company file that you're not using anymore, it'll have all the company files on that computer. It also has the ability to open practice mode. Practice mode is a great thing if you're brand new to point of sale. What it's going to allow you to do is have a full version of the point of sale system, but it will not track or save any of the data. So you can play with all the transactions, you can make sales, make returns, make purchase orders and invoices, create historical documents with either your own data or with a sample file of data. And then once you get out of it, it's not going to save it. So you're not going to do any harm to your data if you're still learning how to use the system. Now, make sure, one thing we want to do is make sure that we get out of practice mode before we start doing actual transactions. But you'll see there's a big blinking light on the top that says practice mode if you're in it. But if you do want to practice with the system, you do want to play around with live data, but not mess anything up, practice mode's a great thing to use. Create a new company. That would be if, for example, there was a, let's say, heaven forbid, there was a corruption in your data file, you want to create a full new company, or you're changing the name of a company. It's just a way to create a new company file on your computer for your point of sale system. Restore from backup. This would be, for example, if you had to do maybe an uninstall and reinstall of your software. Maybe there was a damage in the install file, or maybe you had a corruption in your data. Maybe you had a lightning strike happen nearby and a power surge. What this will do is you can pull your backups, your daily backups, and you can restore your system to that previous day's backup. Obviously, if you have it open and something happens, you would lose the data from in between, but it allows you at least the safety of having the ability to restore from the previous day's backup, and then rename the company. So if you maybe misspelled something or you're changing the nomenclature of the company, you can always go back in and it'll change all the naming in the company file. Also right here, we have use and multi-user mode. So if you have a single computer at your store or you have multiple computers at your store at multiple workstations, we want to make sure we are in the correct store mode. So whether it's, or store user mode, whether it's a multi-user or a single user. Multi-user means it'll allow the system to look over the network, share its data file over the network because multiple computers will be accessing the company file, or if it's single, it'll kind of insulate that company file to the computer that's being used. All right, we'll get out of here. And third one down, switch company file to multi-user mode. That's kind of what we just talked about. This is going to allow you to toggle between single user and multi-user pretty easily. Next step down, we have utilities. We have gone through a little bit about importing and exporting. So just to reiterate, if you have data, whether it's inventory data, customer data, vendor data from a previous system, or even let's say a vendor sends you a packing slip with all the inventory information on it, something like that, you can import that information into the point of sale rather than have to manually input everything yourself. So if you go to utilities and import, it's going to bring up the data import wizard. Inventory items, item pictures, vendors, and customers are what are available. And the ability to use into its default template, create your own template. So essentially you are creating your own mapping to get the items into the system, or use the vendor catalog. Now the data import wizard isn't just to bring in new items, it's also to update current items. So let's say, for example, you have the items in your system, but none of them have UPCs, and you get a new Excel sheet that has the same items with the UPCs. You can import the data again, and it will the fields that you've added to it. Okay. Under utilities as well, we have the export function, very similar to the import wizard. What it allows you to do is export your customer files, your vendors, departments, employees, and inventory items into an Excel file. So if you need to maybe create a third-party email campaign, you can export your company data. You want to send someone a copy of your inventory, so on and so forth. You can export it here. View data import log. So this is just a historical document that shows the log of all the times you imported your data. Or import print templates. If you have different print templates from a third-party print software or from a previous software that you've been using, you can import the printing templates as well. Clean up company data. Now this is something that is very important and very, I don't want to say dangerous, but something to be used sparingly. So we're going to go up into clean up company data. And this is going to allow you to essentially take old data in your system and clear it out. This probably wouldn't apply to someone that is new to QuickBooks Point of Sale, or even have had QuickBooks Point of Sale for a few years. This really applies to the long-time point of sale users. Maybe they have 6 years of data, 10 years of data, 15 years of data. I've actually dealt with a woman that was using QuickBooks Point of Sale, an early version on a Windows 95 computer. So there are people out there that have data going back that far. So you have the option to compress your database, although that takes longer. I'm not going to do that now. So you can select the non-historical documents you want to be removed. Non-historical documents, we've talked about it previously when we talked about purchase orders versus receiving vouchers. A non-historical document is a planning document. So a purchase order, like we said, held receipts, transfer slips, documents that are in your system that are telling your system this is going to happen, but it's not necessarily happening at that time. I'm just going to say close purchase orders, close layaways, and held transfer slips. Next, it's going to ask you about historical documents. So this is where it can get dangerous, because once you purge these historical documents out of your system, they are gone for good. So what it tells you is, I want to set a date. So whether it's a year behind, 5 years behind, so on and so forth, and I want to clear out all of the historical documents previous to that date. So let's say you've got 10 years of documentation, 10 years of receipts in your system, and you only really want the last 3 years. You can set the date that anything prior to that, I'm going to clean out of the system. I'm going to wipe away from my company file. The benefit of doing something like that is, the search function, the backup functions, everything's going to speed up. Obviously, the more data you have in the system, the longer it's going to take to do certain functionalities like backups, like searches, but you're going to lose that historical information. I always suggest, if you're going to do a purge like this, a data cleanup, definitely do a backup and save that backup to somewhere else. That way you can always restore from the backup and have that have those historical documents in your system, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in your system that you have to look at every single day. And I would press cleanup. I'm not going to do that now, but that's how you can clean up old data out of your system. And browse the data, all it'll do, if you press browse the data, you want to find out where your company file is. If you click on browse the data, it'll pull up Windows Explorer and bring you to that area, and resend files we won't worry about today. Tools. Tools, one of my favorite things that you can do in QuickBooks Point of Sale is the Print Designer. Now, the Print Designer allows you to customize every document in the Point of Sale system. So receipts, purchase orders, invoices, sales orders, any document in your system, you can adjust and you can play with as much as you want. So in this case, we're going to look at sales receipt. You'll notice it says 40 column and letter. So a 40 column is traditional receipt printer. So it sends over the, usually it's about 3 inches wide, that long receipt that you get at most stores. Letter is a standard office printer, so 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And it really depends on your business setup and how you want to do it. Most of our in and out brick and mortar retail stores, clothing stores, footwear stores, anything where they're doing a high number of transactions per day, usually you're going to see the 40 column printers there. The letter is going to be a lot more for maybe they're not as busy, but they're doing larger transactions, like we have like a lumber company that, maybe they're doing 10 to 15 transactions a day, but they're larger invoices. They want a lot more data on their receipt, so on and so forth. So in this case, we're just going to look at a 40 column printer, and we're going to modify. Now, one thing I will suggest, try not to modify, if you can, your default templates. You always want to keep your default templates there. My suggestion would be to go to options and copy the selected 40 columns. So I'm going to make a copy of it, and that way I can do whatever I want to it. I can rename it, but then it's not going to mess up the original template for it. So you can see here, we've got every field on here. We've got the body, we've got the header, etc. If you have a store logo, so if in your preferences you imported a store logo, the store logo will show up on the receipt. It's got the receipt number, etc., etc. Your information here. So let's just take the body header. So I'm going to highlight this box. I'm going to go up here to properties, and that's the group store heading properties. So we're going to click on that. and it's going to give you the option of what you want to keep on the receipt or what you want to take off. In this point, we just have the company information. We can put we can change the font, the labeling. We can add a border to it. In this case, I'm going to, let's change the font. And I'm going to give it a little bit different font, make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to press OK. And that's going to change how the receipt is going to look. Same thing down here. If we go into the data field for the merchandise itself, we can go to this. And let's say, for example, you don't want to show tax, or you want to add department, or you want to add the item number and the item description. These are all available to be added into your receipt. It'll change how the receipt looks. Obviously, you can filter how it's going to look, but you can add or take away whatever information you want on any document. Okay, so I'm going to save as, instead of, I'm going to say new receipt. Do you want to make the new receipt the default print template for a sales receipt? Yes, so I'm going to do that. Now, anytime I print out a receipt, it's going to default to that particular design. You'll see it's down there at the bottom. And like I said, it's available for any of the documents in the system. This, for example, is a printable barcode tag. So you can change the design of your tags, what you want on it, the size of your tag, etc. This is something really fun to play around with. This was always my favorite thing to do. If you've got any artistic ability or any, you like building things, it's just a fun little way to pass the time. Because I know everyone has so much fun and they feel like passing their time in QuickBooks Point of Sale, or maybe it's just me. All right, preferences we already went through earlier, but we're going to talk about workstation preferences real quick. Because as we were talking about the different printable documents, the different, the receipts, everything, etc. If you go down here to Workstation Preferences, you'll see it has every document in the system, and you can assign it different printers or where you want it to go. So let's say, for example, you have a receipt printer and an office printer, an 8.5 by 11 standard office printer, both hooked up to this computer. You can set your receipts to print out to the receipt printer, and you can set your receiving vouchers or your layaways or your sales orders to print out to the 8.5 by 11 office printer. And that way you can change your documentation depending on the type of sale it is. And then you can assign different templates. So the sales receipt, it'll have all the different options as far as your receipt templates. And we'll go down to new receipt, the one that we just made. And that'll show up on our, that'll be the default when we print out a receipt. Okay. Next, we're going to go through the hardware setup wizard. So this is if you have, you probably would have done this already when you set up the system, but if you add more hardware to the system, you get a new receipt printer, anything else, any other kind of peripheral hardware, here is where you would walk through setting up that particular hardware in your point of sale system. So you go to hardware setup wizard, you choose the piece of hardware that you're trying to set up. Let's say, for example, we're going to set up a customer pull display. And it's a really easy step-by-step instruction of how to set up any peripheral hardware. It's going to walk you through it. Like we've talked about in the past, QuickBooks Point of Sale really wants to make life easy for you. They want to make it as simple as possible for you to set up the system and be off and running. So the hardware setup wizard is really the step-by-step, easy to follow instructions of how to set up any hardware in your system. All right. Clock in and out. We've already talked about that. It's down here. And then exit, which we're not going to do right now. So those are kind of the ways to look at the back end of what QuickBooks Point of Sale can do. We're also going to talk about the help menu right here. This is something I feel is really underutilized by point of sale users. So if you go to help and go to help contents, whatever page you're on in the point of sale, so whether it's you're in the order, you're going to make a sale, you're in sales history, if you pull up help, it's going to take you directly to the help function or the help page for wherever you are. So for example, let's go to make a sale. It'll take just 1 second. There we go. And I'm going to go to help, and I'm going to go to help. It's going to pull up another screen, and you'll see it takes me right to sales and returns. So it knows that because I'm on the sales screen and I asked for help, it's going to take me to exactly where it thinks I need to go or where it knows I need to go. And then it's got all the information on what to do on the sales screen. So if you're ever stuck, you ever go, hey, what am I doing? I'm not quite sure about this. You can always go to help, and it'll take you directly to the contents that you're looking for. There's also how-to videos. There's a user community. There's a lot of cool little features in here that'll help you if you're ever stuck or you're ever not quite sure where you're going or what you're trying to do. Really utilize the help dropdown because there's a lot of great things in here. Another couple things, manage my license. So if you're ever having issues with your license, you can go here. It's rarely going to happen, and usually you're going to talk to your QuickBooks service provider, such as Barron's Inc., and we'll help you with your license. But if there is ever any license syncing issues that pop up, you can go here and manage your license online. If you don't have automatic software updates, you can always go into the software update here, check for the updates, and change your update preferences. And then if you're ever wondering, hey, what version of QuickBooks am I on? What is my license number, et cetera, you can go to About QuickBooks Desktop Point of Sale. And it's going to have your license information, product information, when you installed, and what version that you're on. When you're in point of sale, you can also press the F2 button, the function 2, and it'll pull up that same screen as well. Do you have any questions? All right, well, I know that was a little bit shorter than we usually do, but that is going to be my, my training for today with the back-end functionality of QuickBooks Point of Sale. I appreciate your time and have a wonderful day.